Today, we're talking with Mili Kale, the co-founder of Moom Health, a women's wellness brand based in Singapore that's redefining what women's wellness looks like globally. Millie launched Moom alongside her sister Maya after realizing there were no solutions tailored to the needs of the modern Asian woman. The brand is on a mission to bring clean, clinically backed care to the forefront of women's health. What started as a deeply personal journey has quickly grown into a fast-scaling supplement company backed by $3.5 million in venture funding. In this episode, we'll talk about building trust in a crowded wellness space, what it takes to personalize at scale, and how Moom is shaping the future of women's health across Southeast Asia. Millie, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me on The Brand Study.
Thank you for having me and for that lovely introduction.
I've been following your journey. Obviously, we went to college together.
Yes.
And the trajectory that you have taken and the growth that I've seen with Moom, it's really just so impressive and so inspiring. I'm so excited to learn more about the backstory.
Yeah.
But before we get started, for listeners who aren't familiar with the brand or your product, what is Moom Health and what products do you all sell?
We create natural remedies focused on the modern Asian woman in the form of expert-backed supplements. So that's kind of Moom in a gist. We launched in Singapore in 2021 and are currently in Singapore, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. So we're in 3 active markets, focused very much on expansion and growth in Southeast Asia and in the Asian region as a whole. The supplements we sell really range, very strong focus on women's health, but we always say, men can take Moom and men do take Moom, but we really focus in terms of the formulation, the dosage, the issues, and really looking to our community for how we build products. So that's where we then have this like Asian women's focus. So that we have things from a magnesium, which is definitely a more generic product, to then something that we call Deep Bloat, which is a product that helps with bloating relief and digestive discomfort and gastric issues, to a product called Crampless, which is very much focused on PMS and period cramps. So those would then be products that, again, of course, are very tailored to women's health based on what our community has asked for and wanted over time.
And when I was doing a little research online, I was reading your backstory and Maya's backstory. It seemed like Moom's inspiration from start was actually from a personal health journey. I'd love to hear a little bit about how that all started and what started this whole path.
Yeah, so Maya, who's my co-founder and younger sister, was diagnosed with PCOS at the age of 15, which is a hormonal imbalance. It affects like 1 in 7 women. It's actually becoming more and more common. But most women don't actually realize they have PCOS until they are trying to conceive. That tends to be the age where a lot of women do actually get diagnosed officially. Maya was one of those odd cases where she basically had every single side effect and every symptom you could possibly have from a very young age. So she was diagnosed quite early. And typically the blanket solution is to be put on the birth control pill or another pharmaceutical. She was on the birth control pill for around 7 or 8 years and slowly just started to not enjoy the experience, was experiencing a lot of side effects, really just not liking what it was doing to not only her body, but also her mind and her emotional state and her mental state. And so, long story short, she basically decided to get off it cold turkey and wanted to learn how to manage her symptoms naturally through supplements, through dietary guidelines, lifestyle guidelines. Like you mentioned, we both went to college in the US, but grew up in Singapore. And so combining those like East and West traditions of, yes, minerals that are helping your body, but then also incorporating things like traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. And after speaking to countless professionals, I think what she realized was that in some way, shape, or form, everyone is essentially saying the same thing. But now it's really, okay, where do I get these products that are going to help support my PCOS? And it's not a cure, but just really help support what I'm going through in terms of side effects. That's when I think, this light bulb moment kind of came to both of us. And this was several years prior to us launching, that there are so many women that not only have these issues with PCOS, right? Like with hormonal acne and not wanting to take Accutane. And so I think what we realized was that, both of us went to college in LA. So we had exposure and access to just so much and everything wellness. But then when we moved back to Singapore and really spoke to the community here, what we realized was that everything was either coming from the US or Australia. And there was nothing really localized to Singapore. So that was truly our light bulb moment that, okay, why don't we create something born and bred in Asia for the Asian woman, using a lot of Asian ingredients, but then also using, clinically studied ingredients with patents all over the world and really focusing on women in our community itself.
Yeah, that's such a fascinating story, and how essentially through your life experience growing up in Singapore, going to college
Yeah,
in the US, and all those different experiences, and a lot of those
exactly.
early trends are coming out of the LA area. So
Yeah.
that's so cool that you're able to pull inspiration, bring it
Yes.
back to your home country, and then launch it there. And then, did you have any background in CPG or consumer packaged goods?
No, nothing at all. My background has always been in like education and public policy. That's what I studied in college, grad school. That's what I was doing prior to launching Moom. I was one of the founding members of another startup. So I had startup experience, but not at all in the CPG world or in the health world, to be honest. Maya also, educationally, yes, her background is in like international relations focused on women's health. So she always had this interest in women's health, but actually always very much on the marketing side of things. Again, with startups. So her role before Maya was the first hire for WeWork in Southeast Asia. So again, very much on the marketing side of things. And yes, WeWork was a startup when it started here, but it had a nice chunk of money behind it. So very different experiences. But yeah, no, not at all. No CPG background, no health background. And I think that's really where, I mean, sometimes we like to say that naivety kind of allowed us to launch, I think. But on the like health and the science side of things, it was very important to us that we like assemble an Avengers team or a scientific board that really knew what they were doing on the formulation side of things, since we just didn't have that background.
So, what were those early conversations like? So, Maya was having these health issues. She wasn't able to find the solutions. You're like, okay, should we go and make some solutions that can maybe alleviate some of these symptoms? Did you just like start writing like pen to paper? Did you start like Googling? Like,
I mean, COVID was a blessing and a curse. And COVID was the first time Maya and I lived in the same country at the same time in like 12 years, maybe more, honestly. I think as kids, we always knew if we were to start a business, we wanted to do it together. I mean, we just started brainstorming ideas. They were all loosely around women's health, but what we had thought of something in the like pregnancy space and in the pregnancy journey, and then we had thought of something in like telehealth. Again, what we kept coming back to was that like we don't have experience in this. I Neither of us had ever been pregnant at that time. Neither of us were doctors. Like we didn't really know what we were talking about. And I think what we realized was that rooting a business to something that is personal or something that you have experienced and lived, that was the knowledge that we had. Like we didn't have the CPG background, we didn't have the health background. So let's at least kind of root it in something that we knew. And we knew that experience and those experiences as women going through different health issues. And so that was really what kind of got us started. I think, again, looking at trends in the US and in Australia, even the UK, supplements had really started growing. COVID was obviously a very peak, like take care of your health time. So I think, timing was also incredibly important when we launched. And yeah, the initial conversations were honestly just cold calling and cold emailing hundreds of research institutes, professors, manufacturers, doctors, anybody that would kind of take 10 minutes to listen to us. And that was how we got started. Maya always says like our biggest strength is persistence and having no ego. So we would literally set up doctor's appointments with, well-known gynecologists in Singapore and pretend like we needed to go and see them and then only talk about our idea. So I think that's kind of what you have to do. And same with manufacturers, the first 50 that we reached out to, the MOQs would have, I mean, that itself would have just bankrupted us. So we really had to find manufacturers and practitioners that not only believed in us, but believed in what we were building, and wanted to like really partner on that and grow with us together, understanding that, when we launched, we had no funding. We didn't actually have plans of raising money either. And we really wanted to try this out. And so, yeah, that's how it all started.
I love hearing those early stories, setting up fake doctor's appointments. And that's what it really takes. And I think a lot of founders and aspiring entrepreneurs, they think there's some magic bullet. Oh no, there's gonna be some way to like find the right people, and you just have to find that kind of gray area and capitalize on it. That's so cool. Were you able to validate the idea or the demand? Did you talk to friends and family? And how did you actually understand like what the market opportunity was in your region and in your country?
Yes. Once we found a manufacturer, which took probably the longest thing that it took like 9 months, 10 months, I think, to actually find a manufacturer. Once we ran a manufacturer, we started sampling a lot of the formulations. And once we kind of had formulations that we were, let's say, 85% to 90% sure we were going to launch with, we actually ran a beta for 6 months with 50 friends and then 50 friends of friends in Singapore. And this was, I mean, it was the most like janky packaging. Maya and I were doing all of the packaging. We got like food safety certified so that we could do everything. And yeah, we started with that for 6 months and it was completely free. So we just were like, let's just test this idea and see, A, do people take supplements every day? And will they take it every day? And B, do people like the formulations? Are they suiting their stomachs? Are they suiting what they want? Like, are we catering to what people actually want? Like, our first line of products were the only line of products that were not 100% launched with community backing because we obviously had to have something before we actually built a community. But then moving forward from there, it's always been things that the community has wanted. But yeah, from the start, we ran a free trial for 6 months.
So you all put your own personal finances, bought some samples,
Yeah,
and had a 6-month trial with 100 people. That's,
exactly.
yeah, that's pretty sizable. So now when you are expanding product lines, you mentioned the communities involved. So do you all source ideas and hear about problems and hear about new ingredients through your audience and through the community?
Yeah, so there are two ways we do it. One way is that we have a quiz on our website that actually generates so much data and information from. They don't even have to be customers, just people that are taking our quiz and engaging with the brand. And then the second way is truly through like speaking to our community, holding small group forums. Now we have a community in Singapore, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. So having Zooms with community members from across the region, really chatting and understanding what people are wanting. We use our social media platforms a lot as a form of communication. Email, we have Telegram chats. So just different points at which we can really interact with our brand. We don't have a physical space. And so that's really the way that we can interact with our community. And so I think, yeah, just by asking, we're always shocked at how many people are invested in what we're creating next and want to be a part of what we're creating next. So we've now even started doing consumer trials where we'll hold trials 6 to 8 months prior to even launching a product with consumers who are obviously willing to be part of the trial and want to be part of a trial. And it'll usually be like one of the last iterations of a product that's, obviously gone through all like safety and standard procedures. It's super exciting. It's really interesting. And it's exciting to be a supplement brand that is truly built by our consumers.
That's so cool that you have them included in the process. And yeah, these are people who clearly just are so emotionally invested and they're just so attached to the brand and the product line. And they probably just get so excited to feel like they're a part of that process and feel like they're a part of building something that's helping themselves and helping their
Mhm.
friends and family and community. That's really cool rather than just creating product in a bubble. And when I was doing a little research online, I saw that you actually had clinical trials and have really relied on science and actually backing claims up. I would love to hear about how science and transparency and safety have become a really core part of the brand.
When we launched the brand, for us, it was just incredibly important that we made sure that everything we did was either backed by studies or backed by clinical trials, either run by us or run by external parties, or that we were using ingredients that had enough studies to back what we were actually doing. Again, I think this goes back to the fact that we were not formulators, so we didn't have the faith in ourselves. And yes, we have, an amazing R&D team and a group of formulators, but I think that was just something that was really important to Maya. And I also think when you look at this region, not only supplements, but just in general, there is a lot of question around what is actually going into products and what is not going into products, and transparency. And it's just not necessarily something that is talked about or at the forefront of too many brands. And so I think that was it's kind of always been at our core, but yeah, we have run clinical trials for 3 of our products. These were university-led clinical trials, all conducted on Asian women and conducted in Asia. So that was really our goal, was that when we were looking for studies and even when we look at some of the most famous ingredients in the world that have I don't even know how many clinical studies behind them. Nothing is really ever done in Asia. And I mean, it makes sense. It's a much smaller market at the moment for supplements. It's a much newer market. But it's interesting, even when a lot of these products are actually coming from Asia and the raw materials are coming from here. And so for us, it was really important that we do that. So yeah, we've slowly started investing in more and more clinical trials. And I think more education around the importance of transparency and understanding what you're putting in your body. We always say that kind of in the way that skincare has like changed the game, that words like hyaluronic acid have just become part of daily speak with a lot of women. We want that to be a similar situation with supplements where you're talking about ingredients and not just the product name, and you're really understanding what you are actually putting in your body the same way that with skincare. Now I would say a lot of women really understand what they're putting on their face.
It seems like education really is at the foundation of it all. You can do all these trials, but actually being able to get that out there and educate consumers about the ingredients. How has that been trying to educate? You mentioned, in Southeast Asia, it's a smaller supplement market compared to the United States. How has that been a challenge? Have people been really receptive? And
I mean, I definitely think it's been a challenge for sure. I would say that I'm assuming it would be a challenge even anywhere in the world, to be honest. One, to be able to educate people on something new, but then also to be able to have or to really focus on people creating new habits. That's like the hardest thing in the world. And so yeah, I think education has definitely been a challenge, and I think it's been a very fun challenge for us. I think for us it's really been focusing on, okay, how do we do this in a way that speaks to our community, that our community would understand, and not only understand but remember and recall. So yeah, I think that's why we have really leaned on a lot of, whether it's events and in-person activations or even on our packaging. We've tried our best to make it that if you pick up a box of any of our products, you can kind of read and see everything you would need to know. So we even have, on the outer box, we have like the size of the capsule, because we slowly started realizing that that was something that people were quite worried about, was like, is it too big? Um, and little things like that. I think really understanding, how do you take a product? When should you take a product? Why should you take a product? Ultimately, we would love that everybody just knew this. But I think for now, having points where you can really refer to that in an easy to digest way has been the best way we've been able to do that.
so do you think it's been a mix of in-person, packaging, and digital, and you're just trying to
Yeah,
hit on all
definitely.
fronts?
And I think reiterating it through each kind of touch point that you have with Moom has been, the way that we've seen the most amount of success with educating on products and then ultimately converting to paying customers.
So you mentioned the packaging, and I just want to shift a little bit towards the brand identity and the design, because first of all, it's beautiful and it's elevated yet relatable and really sophisticated. I'd love to hear a little bit about that process and how you landed on the aesthetic, but also the name. Is there any inspiration behind the name?
I'll start with the name. I wish there was like a more cool story to this, but basically, it was the very last thing we did. We had everything in order. We actually even ran our beta without a name, really. So we went to Google and we're like, how do you name a company? And we read this article about Gwyneth Paltrow and how a lot of her advisors had told her that companies that are very tech heavy or dominated online that have two O's in them have proven to be very successful. It's Facebook, Yahoo, Google, Zoom. There are lots of companies like this once you start thinking about it. And that's how she named Goop. She added her initials to the front and back, and then it was the two O's. And we were like, oh, okay. And my mom actually at the dinner table goes, well, why not Moom? It's like Millie, Maya, and then the two O's, and it kind of sounds like mom, and it kind of sounds like moon cycle. So there's this like link to women as well. And of course, like most ideas that anyone's mom throws out, we were like, no, that's not going to work. But as we said it more, I think what we realized was that it had this playfulness, but also was not too playful. It had like multiple meanings, so it didn't necessarily box us into anything, and it was easy to remember. And so that's how we came up with the name. And if nothing else, it's always a conversation starter. People always ask what the meaning of it is. So I think that's the name. So thank you, Gwyneth Paltrow, for that. In terms of the branding, so as I mentioned, Maya started her career at WeWork. And because she was like one of the first hires, just had the opportunity to meet so many really interesting people in the region. And we worked with a friend of hers who is actually an artist. She's not, focused on branding. So no agency. Again, we bootstrapped this. So funds were limited. So yeah, we worked with an artist who really helped us develop like our brand guidelines. I think Maya and I have both just always had a passion for aesthetics and branding, and just have always really loved CPG products. So I think our library of what we like and don't like was quite large, which made it a little bit easier working with a really talented artist and somebody who could translate that into brand guidelines, into understanding what fonts we use, into understanding how we can eventually evolve the brand, was really interesting. So we did that. And then after that, for the first like year and a half, we didn't actually have a designer. Just took the brand guidelines and incorporated and made it into different packaging forms and different things that could work. We worked with a couple freelancers to help us here and there because, again, like we're not trained designers, but Canva took us very far. Finally, we have a small design team in-house that does and leads all of the like design and packaging. But yeah, our goal was really to just have something that was, again, playful, but had a slight tone of seriousness or slightly elevated, and something that you would be happy to have on your shelf. In the same way that, people love showing what's on their beauty shelves, why not show what's on your supplement shelf as well?
You all definitely hit that balance of relatable but elevated, and still it definitely has that wellness look and feel as well. So I'd love to maybe pivot a little bit towards your funding, because that's always such an intriguing conversation, and for founders that have never raised funding to kind of like hear about those stories. And I would love to hear. So you all raised, your recent round was 3.5 million. First of all, congratulations. That's awesome. And I'd love to hear how that all came to be, and what was the approach to raising, with the investors that you ended up partnering with.
Yeah. So like we said, we launched in June of 2021, and then we raised our first seed round we closed in September 2022. Sorry, I'm going to talk in Singapore dollars. So that was like a million Sing, so like 800K US. It was quite a small round. But when we launched, again, like I mentioned, we hadn't really thought of the like VC funding route. I think that was, to be honest, it was just, again, naivety. We had no idea. Like, we were like, I don't know, is this what you do? Or do you just like, we had put aside a small amount of money that we were like, this is what we're going to invest. And I guess if it all goes up in flames, it goes up in flames. Like, that was the amount that we had that we could kind of contribute to Moom. And so we had done that. And, that got us through like the first couple inventory orders. We had no team. We didn't hire anyone for 6 months. And our first hire was a part-time operations role to help with packaging. So Maya and I were packing all the orders ourselves, customer service, everything. And we still had full-time jobs. It kind of got to the point where, okay, we have to decide, are we going to give up our full-time jobs? And also we needed a little help. That's when I think conversations started. And honestly, we got quite lucky. A lot of funds reached out to us. I think supplements, female founded, something kind of new and interesting in the market. And so we were quite fortunate to be able to speak with almost all funds in the region, with like a lot of bigger names, and then a lot more boutique firms as well. Our lead investors for our seed round was a company called DSG Partners. They focus specifically on consumer products in Southeast Asia and India. So it's a very focused fund. And what we spoke to them for almost 9.5 months, 10 months. And that was honestly out of choice. We were just not ready when they reached out. We just kind of continued, going on. Maya and I had never raised money before. We had literally no idea what we're doing. We're not finance people at all, but thankfully our husbands are. So they stepped in. I think for us, it was really important, especially for our seed round, that we had investors that, of course, believed in us, believed in the brand, and really understood what we were trying to build. I think we had both by that point listened to enough founder podcasts and heard enough horror stories about funding gone wrong. And so we had certain non-negotiables that we just wanted to make sure that investors understood. We were not going to become a tech brand. I think that was like a big thing, was that yeah, Moom is a CPG brand. It's not a tech brand. And so, yeah, just understanding that, really focusing on this region, focusing on women. We were told that like women is too small a niche, but it is 50% of the population. So that's how we partnered with DSG. And then we got on a couple angels as well. They were more strategic. So again, Love Bonito, which is, I would say, Singapore's glory story in the clothing world. They just launched in the US actually as well. But yeah, we really wanted to make sure that we had women as part of this cap table. And then the co-founders of Redmart, which is a huge grocery delivery company here, like Instacart. Yeah, a couple other just like strategic investors to come in to support. And that was our seed round. So yeah, we raised around a million Singapore dollars. And then just this year in April, so almost 3 years later, we closed our pre-series A of 3.5 million Singapore, which was led by Wipro Consumer Ventures. They are a huge consumer conglomerate. For reference, like larger than Unilever in Malaysia. And they have this amazing venture fund as well. And so they led it, DSG followed. And then we had some other strategics as well coming in, the largest traditional Chinese medicine family, Yuan Sang, a couple other, more strategic on the like formulation side of things and ingredient side of things, just come in as angels as well. I think we liked that balance of VC and angel investors in our first round, and having actually people who have founded businesses also be part of these discussions in our cap table. And so we wanted to kind of emulate that in our pre-series A as well. And the reason we raised this round was very much for team expansion in the region, product expansion, manufacturing. Yeah.
And it's so interesting to hear that you had a lead investor and then you had these other strategic people that maybe came on to, it was more than just the money. Like you mentioned, it was for like formulator, or maybe they helped with distribution, or they helped with sourcing. Have they helped with expansion and growth and like distribution or sourcing? Like, have they continued to stay on as almost advisors?
Yeah, 100%. We only have one other board member, which also was something we were very particular about, even through this round. But we do have, honestly, all of our investors as board observers, so they can come in and out of board meetings. We have really close relationships with all of them, do meetings with them separately. So yeah, I would actually say like very much advisors, not only on the grow side of things, but also just like for Maya and I as founders, how do we continue to grow? How do we build a team? Like you said, distribution, like where should we be? Should we go into 100 stores, or should we start with just like 25 and then slowly build? So I think really learning from their experiences as well is something that's been super important. And as we think about expansion throughout the region and beyond, I think that's really been super helpful to have other perspectives as well. It's just nice to have more people to bounce ideas off, to be honest.
And if they've already been involved in a business and growing a business in the region, they know they can, really cool. And are you all really focusing on the direct to consumer model, or are you also in retail?
We are in retail. So we launched in retail last year. So we are in pharmacies in Singapore and Malaysia. It's a chain called Watson's. And then we are also in a lot of like smaller retailers, with the idea being really wanting to meet our consumer where they are, and where they go. So whether that's workout studios or it's smaller, more like lifestyle stores, we do have an assortment there. But yeah, our big retailer, we have launched retail last year, and hopefully growing. We're in some groceries as well, like specialty groceries, I guess, Erewhon-esque kind of groceries. And so those are also retail. But yeah, that really only launched last year. And then so we're on our own website, obviously, and then on marketplaces also.
And what would you say has been, if there was one strategy that's been like the big unlock for growth? Is it PR? Is it paid ads? Is it influencer partnerships, or is there something else that's driving traffic and growth?
Um, Honestly, I think for us, it has been hiring a team and having the right people around us. I think, you always hear founders or anyone in business saying that, like, don't hire when you're desperate, hire before you think you need people. And that was probably the biggest mistake we made, was that we were so scared of burning money that we didn't hire. But as soon as I think we really, and I would say in the last year, we've really been fortunate to have such amazing people around us, whether it's our team or our advisors or whoever it may be. I think that has really allowed us to unlock so much potential that maybe we could have done, a year and a half earlier if we had hired that team. I don't know. No regrets at all. But yeah, I think really having the right people around has been a huge driver for our growth over the last 2 years, especially. And I think it'll continue to be as we continue to grow as well. Just we always say that, like, I always say I'm not a finance person and I probably will not become one in the next few years. So yeah, having somebody lead our operations and retail distribution and growth, and having someone really take onus of Meta and TikTok and all of that is so important, and having people that have that expertise. So yeah, I would say people.
I love that answer. And how many people are on the Moom team right now?
Total is 25, including Maya and I. We have to do all operations in-house at the moment. So we have quite a large, like, warehouse and packaging team. So I'm counting that as well. And then I would say, like, core team is around 14 people, including Maya and I. And we're split between Singapore, Malaysia, and actually India. So our finance team is based in India.
Yeah, that's a pretty sizable team. Has it been a transition to
Oh,
become a
definitely.
manager and like learn how to manage a team, especially an international team?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think, both Maya and I have had teams before, but obviously not managed this many people at one time. It's been a big learning curve, but a very fun one as well, and something we're also seeing ourselves grow so much as time goes on. As managers, as leaders, learning from the people around us. I think, that's a huge part of any founder's role, and it's just becoming more and more part of our role. So I think actually the big adjustment has been the way that our roles have really changed over the last couple of years. But yeah, very exciting.
I always hear founders like it's almost like a rite of passage of, you know, becoming an independent. As a founder, you're so used to being a contributor. Like, okay, I'm gonna do everything. This is my baby. I'm gonna like design that thing. I want to do the
Yeah,
website. I want to do that photo shoot, and then to actually take a step back and be like, oh wait, actually, I have to trust other people to be able to do
exactly.
things. And looking forward towards the future a little bit, women's health in Asia and in Singapore and Malaysia. Where do you think this is all heading, and how does Moom really plan to fit into that future growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think we always say that, like, one of our biggest advantages is that we do have first mover advantage. There aren't really any other brands focused on women's health in the region, specifically through supplements. I think there's so much potential. I mean, I think we're only now starting to see not dominance, but topics in women's health really becoming mainstream in the US, in the UK, and even that, I think there's so much more growth. So I think, we always say you see a trend in the US and like 3 years later it trickles down to Asia. But yes, I think there's so much potential. I mean, we've seen so much interest in the brand, and I think in the product and in the ethos, and I think really looking forward to focusing next year and the year after that on continuing to create products with our community, but also building the Moon ecosystem beyond just products, and really focusing on interesting initiatives that I think continue to propel, like, the women's health message as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be a little bit of, looking back in retrospect, but is there one bet that you made early on that you're really starting to see the benefit of now? Obviously, like focusing on women's health and being that first mover, but is there anything more nuanced that you're like, we made kind of a gamble there and now it's starting to maybe fall into place?
Yeah, I think it would be two things that are kind of similar. One, really taking the time and not giving up on finding the right manufacturer, not just a manufacturer. In supplements, it's quite rare that anybody brings manufacturing in-house. You tend to use external parties, and work with people. And I think, yeah, I think there were so many times that we were when we were looking for a manufacturer, we were like, okay, maybe we should just go with this like big name that everybody's heard of in the industry. And I think I'm so thankful that we did not do that and that we went with, yes, a very large name as well, but we went with someone that actually really believed in what we were doing. And I think the second big investment was really setting up a formulation board, R&D team, all of that from the get-go, really understanding and knowing that everything we are saying our products are doing, they are actually doing, and having that trust and belief in the products was something, I think we didn't have to do that at all. But really focusing on that from the very beginning is, I think, how we've retained customers throughout the last 4 years and hopefully how we continue to as we move forward.
Looking forward 5 to 10 years, when someone says Moom Health, what do you want customers to feel when they hear your name?
To feel, I think trust and knowing that, like, I'm putting this in the most unsophisticated way, but that like we always have your back as women. I mean, we always, when people ask us this question, what do you want people to think of? We always say like being the go-to women's health supplement brand. But I think as a feeling, just knowing that you can rely on Moom, you can trust Moom, and that Moom is there for you through every life stage of womanhood. Yeah, I think that would be the feeling.
That was Mili Kale, the co-founder of Moom Health. Thanks for listening to The Brand Study. Make sure to click that follow button on your podcast app so you never miss a new episode. If you're looking for more practical takeaways to grow your brand, subscribe to The Brand Study newsletter. It's packed with exclusive content, deep brand analysis, and real-world insights you can actually use. Sign up today at thebrandstudy.co. I'm Conrad, and I'll see you next time.